Feel like David Blaine, made cash for the cars, didn't crash anything, smoked the cool J.
It's Halloween, or almost Halloween. It's October. It's the spooky season. And we've been talking horror movies some lately. And tonight, we're going to talk about one of my favorite types of horror movie. And that's the horror movie that makes you laugh. All right? And not necessarily like scary movie or any of the farces that are really first and foremost a comedy.
Yeah.
But we're talking about some horror films that make you laugh along the way. And we're both going to dish a few out. I'll pitch to you. You go ahead and start us off.
I'm going with Leprechaun in the Hood. I mean, there's so many quotables. We showed a couple on the show in the past, so I think it's no secret that I'm a fan of that movie. But it's just so funny. Ice-T's in it. It's classic. What about you, Jimmy?
All right, so I got a few that I'm going to bring up. The first one and the best one for me, Return of the Living Dead. One of my favorite movies. It's a B-rate horror movie, but it's got some of the funniest dialogue that you can see in movies. And it's a very tense horror film. It's gruesome, and it doesn't really go for laughs. But you've got these people, and they're very tense, and they start to turn on each other, and the dialogue is just funny. It's got some bite. Return of the Living Dead. That's where I'm going for the top of the heap. Then I got a few others. I got Slither with Nathan Fillion. Don't know if you've ever seen it or not. Very, very, very good movie. And it's got some scares. It's got a lot of gore. But it's hilarious. A lot of real gems. What else are you thinking about over there?
I gotta go with Jason X. I mean, Jason, slasher, in space, cyborg Jason. I'm not with it, man. I could not deal, yo. I watched the movie. It just seemed way over the top for me, man. So I was laughing the whole way along. Jason was shooting missiles at people and stuff like that, so I was just dead with it, man. What about you, bro?
Jason X, I actually like. We've had that discussion before, but it is surely over the top. The last film I'm going to talk about, when we're talking about horror films that make me laugh, another of my personal favorites, I'm going to go to Kingdom of the Spiders. All right, and I don't know if you've seen this or not. This is this old film with William Shatner, and this is one of those movies that's it's not intentionally funny. It's just the laughs that are there. Shat's performance is incredibly amusing. He's straight up he's basically Captain Kirk. Only he's a country guy in the midst of this horror film with spiders. Some of the acting, some of the scenes with the spiders, which are real. They didn't use fake spiders. They brought in thousands of actual tarantulas. And this type of thing wouldn't happen today, and it's not funny, but we'll just stop there. It's not funny, but the real spiders that they used would suffer a lot throughout the course of the film as well. But they also get the cast a few times, and it's kind of funny because with Shatner in particular, I think like you can tell the acting like I'm getting bitten by the spider, and there are one or two parts where I think it's one of those times he really got bit. Kingdom of the Spiders. Really, really entertaining. So those are some horror movies that we enjoy, horror movies that make us laugh. I'm sure that you've got some favorites of your own, and it's that time of year you're probably watching them. Tell us about it.
Tweet us at Beers&Beards and let us know your 3 favorite horror movies to laugh to. And I'm Henny.
I'm Jimmy.
This is Beards.
And Beards. And those cans didn't sound empty. They're not. I'm Jimmy, and I'm about to break out my top 5 supervillains. If you can read my writing, you're doing well. I can hardly read it myself, but my top 5 supervillains. We're talking comics on Beers and Beards. It's Halloween, so we're not talking about the good guys. We're talking about the bad guys. And number 5 on my list, we're going to start at the bottom. I'm going new school here, okay? The classics, everybody loves them, but comic book villains, I'm going with the Governor at number 5 on my list. And the Governor is a major villain in the Walking Dead comic book series. And I say this because some of you may have watched a TV show and been like, what? Really? That guy? Are you sure? And in fact, yes, I am sure. You have to understand that the guy in the comic book would eat the guy on the TV show alive. Love the show. The comics are vastly superior. The Governor is a wonderful villain. He's diabolical. He's involved in some of the most gruesome scenes that we've seen in that comic book series. I'm going for the Governor at number 5. Number 4 might surprise some people because sometimes people think that I'm anti-Batman. I'm not. I just think the guy's way overrated, and sometimes it gets a little silly when you deal with Batman people and you start talking about him because he can beat anyone and everyone if he had time to prepare. It's this ridiculous discussion. Number 4 on my supervillains list, I'm going with the Joker. All right, the premier baddie in Batman's universe. The Joker, phenomenal villain. Love the look of the character. We're talking about a classic here. We're talking about one of the most popular villains of all time. And there are a lot of people who would probably put the Joker much higher on their list. And it would be hard for me to blame them for doing so. But for me, I'm going to go with the Joker at number 4. And when I go number 3, here's a guy that sometimes he's a good guy, sometimes he's a bad guy. He's always awesome. We're talking about Magneto, enemy numero uno for the X-Men, although he once led the team and has been a good guy at times. So there's a debate there, but fantastic villain, a really rich character. Absolutely love him in the film series, but that's only a glimpse of all the different things we've seen from that character in comic books. So number 3, Magneto. Number 2, this one should come as no surprise to anybody that knows me and my love for Spider-Man. His nemesis, the Green Goblin, classic comic book villain. I mean, this is the guy who killed Spider-Man's first love, Gwen Stacy. The look is incredible. The way the character has been handled, the way they know each other's secret identities, and there's kind of like a weird father-son relationship at the same time as all the fights, and it's just a wonderful relationship between hero and villain. It's very special. I absolutely love the Green Goblin. Number 1 on my list, top 5 supervillains. I've got a beer over here. That's a good thing. Number 1, creme de la creme, Dr. Doom. We're talking about a character with a wonderful look. Started as a primary villain for the Fantastic Four. Certainly did a great job in that regard. But wound up being one of the premier villains in the Marvel Universe. And he's always just stood out, and he seems to stand above. I think a great example, and one of the things I always point to when I'm talking about my love for Dr. Doom, is Marvel's Secret Wars, which was just this epic event when I was a kid. And they took a bunch of the good guys and a bunch of the bad guys. This powerful being called the Beyonder takes these guys to this planet and tells them to fight each other, basically. And while they're doing this, Dr. Doom says, screw that, branches off on his own, takes down the Beyonder himself, who's basically kind of godlike, takes his power, and he becomes the big villain in the series. I've always thought that was just exemplary of the character. He's so arrogant. He's very, very powerful. He's got a great look to him. Just a wonderful villain. Anything for me, Dr. Doom. He's popped up in so many other characters in their books. When you deal with Dr. Doom, you're dealing with a quality comic book. These are my top 5 supervillains in honor of Halloween. I'm liking this list. That's my top 5. And of course, you can agree, you can disagree, you can share your thoughts with us. We always like to hear what you're thinking. This is my top 5. What's yours? What's up, guys? I'm Jimmy from Beers&Beards, and I've got some big news to share with you. This is my new book, Dirty Southside Jam. This bad boy is going to be released Saturday, October the 26th. You'll be able to get it on Amazon as an ebook if you like, or a hard copy, just like the one I'm holding before you. I'm going to be at Binding Time Cafe, their Fall Book Festival, on Saturday. That's the first place I'm going to make it available. And this is a really fun book. For my second novel, I wanted to do something very different. Typically, I write horror. I wrote a thriller this time, but it's not your average thriller. Okay, for me, thrillers always seems to be set in some big city, or if it's rural, it seems to be like a big forest or a desert. It's like these expansive patches of wilderness, or a big city, an urban environment. I wanted to do something different. I wanted to write a thriller set somewhere like where we live. Okay, I live in Henry County, and as I wrote this, I called it my South Bassett thriller. All right, so this for me is something that hits very close to home. It's a lot of fun. It's got comedy. It's got thrills. There's some gruesome stuff in it. Dirty Southside Jam. Back your boy. Buy a copy.
Y'all about to get ready to roll, man. We moving real fast.
I'm Jimmy.
I'm Henny.
You're watching Beers
and Beards.
We're drinking and talking football. This is a little segment we call 3 questions. First question for tonight's show: which 3-3 team will break out of the pack? And there are a lot of 3-3 teams right now. Teams sitting at 500. Some of them more enticing than others. But we've got Cleveland, we've got San Diego, Dallas, Philadelphia, the Jets, the Rams, the Titans, and Baltimore, the Ravens. So that's a lot of teams sitting at 500. Which of those teams is going to bust out of that pack and maybe do something significant this year?
Now, it's easy for me to go with the Cowboys. You know how much I love them. I don't make no secret about it. But outside of the Cowboys, man, there's a couple of good teams in there. But no, I can tell you real quickly who I don't think it's going to be. But realistically, the San Diego Chargers, I pegged it at the beginning of the season that they were going to come out looking good. Now they're looking good. They're showing flashes. I think they're going to be that team that gets hot, takes it all the way to the playoffs.
Now, we agree and we disagree because, truthfully, if you ask me who the best team on that list, all those 3-3 teams, if you ask me who the best team is, maybe I go San Diego. Because I think that Phillip Rivers is back to his old ways, and that's winning football. He's playing great. They're playing solid as a team. But this is the thing. When I look at this list, I hate to say it, but San Diego, they have no chance of winning the division. Wild card maybe. Division, it's not happening. You got to go through Denver and San Diego. You look at this list. Dallas and Philly both. Yeah. Either of those teams could take the division, and you know,
it's going to be Dallas.
Baltimore, they've got a good shot at their division. It's a weak division.
They're a weak team.
When I look at it like that, I'm tempted to go that way because you've got a few teams on this list. So, you know, some of those may very well win their division.
That's true.
That means they're going to the postseason. San Diego's the best team. I'm going to go with you and the Dallas Cowboys just because of the teams that can win their division on that list.
They're the best too.
They're the best, and I think they're very capable of doing more than just winning their division. If Dallas could fire on all cylinders, okay, if you could get a running game to match Tony Romo and he could develop
defense,
a bit more consistency, this is a
the
familiar story.
Yeah.
But if you guys could operate with consistency, there's a very high ceiling. So I'm going with Dallas. I'm sure you're glad to hear that.
Well, I am. You know what is intriguing? Between Cleveland and Baltimore, who do you think is going to wind up with a better record at the end of the season between those guys?
I feel like Baltimore is going to become more cohesive. I'd really like to see Cleveland. What a story that would be.
I think it's going to be Cleveland.
And they've got the raw talent, obviously.
Yeah.
But I feel like Baltimore is going to tighten up. They're going to right that ship, and they're not going to be the same Baltimore. That's out of the question. But they should be able to turn things around and win their division.
Well, that brings us to our second question. Jimmy, which team you think could stop the Peyton Manning-led Broncos?
That's a tall order. I think they get a stiff test in Indy this week. I can't go with the Colts. You saw that when we did the Who You Got. I can't go with the Colts, but that's a big challenge. Washington coming up, not as big of a threat.
Nope.
San Diego, it's possible. Phillip could hang. I believe that he could hang and
he can put up those points.
That could be a game. But Kansas City, also undefeated at present in the same division, very underrated football team, very solid. They're going to get 2 cracks at the Broncos and one in fairly short order. And if that's a low-scoring contest, that's a big if when you're talking about Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. But if Kansas City, if that defense could man up and that's a low-scoring contest. It's anybody's football game. So I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. Division rivalry. They're going to get 2 shots at it, and I think they're a very good football team. If that's a low-scoring game, I like the Chiefs. I like their chances a lot.
Well, and I kind of agree with you because I think with 2 shots, the Chiefs and the Chargers may both be able
True.
to beat them. But I think their first loss is going to come from those New England Patriots. I think they're going to be playing in Foxborough.
Week 12.
Hey, week 12, they're going to be
12.
in New England. I don't see it happening. I know by then Gronk should at least have played 2 or 3 games.
If everybody says it's okay.
Yeah, well, I think the doctors, I think they cleared him this week. I think that's what they said. So I'm going with New England's going to be able to take them out in week 12. After that, maybe Phillip Rivers, maybe Alex Smith and those Chiefs and those Chargers, maybe they'll be able to ride that momentum and get their wins also. But after that, the Broncos got kind of a tough road.
True. Let me ask you this. If both of these teams continue to play at an elite level, and the Broncos and the Patriots are both, still gunning teams down, when they face off, how much hype are we going to see going into that battle between Peyton and Tom? Different teams.
Listen, I think that those two could be compared to the Magic and Bird of the NFL.
True.
And I don't think we've ever really had something like that where you could compare them through so many different eras of their career, different receiver corps, different teams even now.
And a lot of epic games, big decisions, they're going
Big
for it on
games.
4th down.
Playoff games.
Playoff, battles. It's a
Undefeated
fantastic
streaks
rivalry.
on the line. Yeah.
So that's just going to be monumental. Moving right along to our third question, we got 2 teams that seem to be in panic mode. Who's hitting the panic button harder? Minnesota, where they're starting a quarterback who literally just got there, in Josh Freeman, or the Houston Texans, who, Schaub is injured, but we're setting T.J. Yates, who has a playoff victory in Houston last year. We're setting him down to play the hometown hero, who was previously 3rd string on the depth chart. Who's hitting the panic button harder, Minnesota or Houston?
I want to know what they think.
True.
What do you guys think about the Minnesota Vikings starting Josh Freeman or Houston starting, what's the guy's name?
Case Keenum? I think it's Case, something like that.
Wait, listen, man. I think only one of these guys is going to lead their team to a victory this weekend. But it ain't that guy. All right. Now, I think that Houston's been hitting this panic button, and they're just listening to the fans, man. It sounds crazy, but how the fans could start cheering that Matt Schaub was injured is beyond me. I mean, he's got people coming to his crib, and listen.
Yeah, it's a rough year for Matt Schaub. And look, he got so much grief about throwing these pick sixes in consecutive games. And what happens? He goes down. T.J. Yates comes out, throws a pick 6.
Yeah.
So it's not just Matt Schaub. There are some bigger issues in Houston.
How about Andre Johnson being hurt, Owen Daniels being hurt, those things, and Arian Foster playing hurt. Those things come into play.
That's huge. Both teams are hitting the panic button.
Yeah.
Maybe they're both hitting it equally hard. I have to think that Minnesota is in a much better position, though, because we don't know who this guy in Houston is. We know nothing about him. Josh Freeman has played some winning football.
Yeah.
He had a terrific season early on where he went for 4,000 yards and 26 TDs, a low number of picks. Plus, there's an added bonus. Not only do we know more about him, he has Adrian, and you have to think that Josh Freeman is going to be really motivated to play Greg Schiano out of his job. Because mark my words, if Tampa Bay continues to struggle, and I think they will, and
too.
Josh Freeman does anything positive in Minnesota,
With Greg Jennings.
Greg Schiano, it looks very bad. If he doesn't already look very bad, because that's a mess in Tampa Bay.
It is. Tampa Bay is becoming a farce right now. I'm just sick of seeing Schiano in the news. It's always something new out there, and I mean that's
These
not
infections. It's a mess.
I-
So Houston, for me, I guess they're hitting the button harder, and I say that mainly because I don't like their option as much.
Yeah, I don't even know who Tampa Bay is even starting. I think Tampa Bay's
Glennon.
been hitting the panic button
Yeah.
harder than anybody else this season.
Yeah. Beers and Beards. Those are 3 questions. We answered them. What do you think? You share your thoughts with us.
Yes, at Beards&Beards on Twitter. You can hit us up individually.
Or together.
Or
Or individually.
at Don't Be Like Ryan, at Jimmy B. Dan.